KUNC and the NPR network, this is In The NoCo. I'm Erin O'Toole. It's one of the more unusual exhibits on display at the Butterfly Pavilion in Westminster. Stroll past the colorful butterflies, past scores of other insects, and you'll find a 250-gallon saltwater tank. It houses part of a nationwide collaboration to save a badly damaged coral reef found off the coast of Florida. The rescue project began in 2020 after a coalition of zoos and aquariums teamed up to house and grow coral in response to a disease that had spread across the underwater habitat off Florida. And the Butterfly Pavilion stepped up to be part of that project. 6 years in, we wanted to hear how a coral colony ended up in Colorado and what challenges its handlers overcame along the way. Sara Stevens is a marine biologist who manages the Coral Ark project for the Butterfly Pavilion. She spoke with me about this unusual rescue mission.
It's so cool. I could talk for hours about this. And coral are so weird. It's so hard to describe this animal. It's like if you play 20 questions, It's like rock, plant, mineral. Yes, all of them.
Yes to all.
Yes, it's everything.
Sara, tell us about the disease that devastated the coral off of Florida's coast. What is it called and how quickly did it become catastrophic?
Yeah, so the disease that's been impacting these corals is called stony coral tissue loss disease. This disease cropped up about 2014. It wasn't until about 2018 that they realized that this was a beast they had never met before. It wasn't acting like the other diseases they had dealt with previously. It was impacting quite a bit more species of coral. And that devastation quickly moved through the entirety of the Florida reef tract, over 360 miles of coral reef. And by 2020, the entire reefs on that chain were impacted.
Oh, wow. I have to say, housing endangered coral seems a little bit outside Butterfly Pavilion's zone of expertise. What made you get involved back in 2020?
So what a lot of people don't realize about Butterfly Pavilion is that we are more than butterflies. Our entire focus is invertebrates. That's land-based invertebrates, flighted invertebrates, but also aquatic invertebrates.
So really, you focus on insects, but also ocean creatures.
Yeah. Invertebrates are any animal that does not have a backbone.
Tell me about what you remember about the coral arriving in Colorado. What kind of package showed up at the Butterfly Pavilion, and were you nervous as you got started?
Oh my goodness, I was so stressed. It had been building in anticipation. So we had been working on this project. We had to find all of these resources that we hadn't budgeted for because this was such an important project and it was so time sensitive to get these coral out of the ocean. So for me, I had been pushing and building to this moment where we were going to receive the coral. I actually had to go pick them up at the airport. So we shipped them air cargo via Southwest. So they put them on a plane in Florida, gave me all the information, and I met them at the airport, just like you would a relative, and picked them up. There were multiple boxes that I had to, get in my car. There was a brief moment of terror when they said that they were stuck in Fort Worth and they weren't coming until the next day. And so I'm talking with the company and I'm saying, you don't realize how important these coral are. We have to find them.
Wow.
And so got them home safely. So it was a very emotional day for me. All of this work and time and effort getting them here. And so unpacking the coral was really moving for me personally, getting to see them go into their new home.
I had no idea there was so much drama around getting them there. That is amazing.
To be fair, neither did I until we had to live it.
Coral reefs are kind of a network of tiny organisms. How big is a single piece of coral? And then how do you make a coral reef grow?
The coral we received were a bit smaller. They ranged in size anywhere from, 3 to 4 inches to some of our largest pieces were about 15 to 16 inches. And that's because they had to ship them a pretty far distance. Some of these coral species can get to the size of a Volkswagen Beetle. So they're not necessarily as small as they seem. They just take time and care to grow.
Well, help me picture this. What colors are your coral at the Butterfly Pavilion? How big is it?
It's so funny because when we first got them in, I had full expectations that our coral were going to be brown and kind of ugly because that's often how people describe Caribbean coral.
Yeah, kind of beige.
Kind of beige, right? Yeah. All of the pretty coral are in the Indo-Pacific. But for us, when we received these corals, the colors were incredible. Beautiful, vibrant Kelly green or very beautiful deep purples, teals and turquoises, even some sky blues on the rims of some of these coral. And it really allowed me to have an appreciation for these often overlooked coral and how beautiful this reef actually is.
How accurately do you have to recreate the water conditions off of Florida for this project? And how tricky is that to pull off?
I love to describe taking care of an aquarium is kind of like if you had to manage the ratio of oxygen and nitrogen for your dog and your cat.
Oh boy.
You have to be right in our area. It's something we don't really think about for a lot of our terrestrial animals. But when you have an aquatic ecosystem, there's so much that goes into the chemistry that makes it viable for these animals to exist. So these coral like to eat a lot, which is something we didn't really expect. They tend to like the water just a little bit dirtier than we anticipated. So it's been a really interesting opportunity to discover new things and to collaborate because we were all working towards a common goal, and the common goal was the betterment of the care of these animals. Every week we would meet and we would discuss what worked, what didn't, who was struggling, who was succeeding, what worked in your system but didn't work in somebody else's. And without that collaborative nature, I don't think this project would have been nearly as successful as it has been.
Now I need to know what feeding time is like. What do coral eat?
So they do have some similarities to plants. They use photosynthesis. They're able to produce some of their own food. That's called autotrophy. But they also are able to get food out of the water. So plankton and algae, little bits of detritus. The ocean actually has a wide range of things just floating around in it that animals can eat throughout the day. So they'll grab those particulates with their little tentacles and bring them into their stomach.
Amazing. Sara, the original plan was to reestablish the coral in the ocean. How has that plan evolved over the years?
So originally when they pulled the coral out of the ocean, the idea was that they were saving these genetic parents to one day go back and make sure that we had enough genetic diversity so the coral could thrive for years to come. What they realized, though, was taking coral that had never seen a disease and then putting them back into an ocean where the disease still existed just meant that those coral would most likely get the disease as soon as they went back in. So instead they pivoted. And so now the goal is to take coral that survived the disease and breed them with coral that have all of these unique genetics. So you're taking all of the best parts of each of these coral, and then their offspring are the ones that are being outplanted. So our main focus here is holding some of these parents to one day be used for restoration efforts and also awareness about what's going on.
That's Sara Stevens, a marine biologist with the Butterfly Pavilion in Westminster. She spoke with me about her work to preserve and grow coral. You can see the coral and read more about the project in a link in our show notes and on our website, KUNC.org. That's it today for In The NoCo. I'm Erin O'Toole. Thanks so much for listening.